Yeah.
The Land and Water and UW Extension meeting will come to order. Was the meeting properly announced?
Yes, it was.
May we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For roll call, Supervisor Mons is excused. Supervisor Wimmer, Supervisor McLaughlin, Supervisor Krug, Doreen Olson, and Mary Lou Paler are present, and myself. Moving on to the approving of the agenda, I'd like to ask the committee to consider bumping number 8 down into the land and water section, so that would allow the UW Extension staff to not have to go through all of that, waiting for their portion to occur. Also, Doreen has to leave at 3, so if we could also take the FSA stuff and put that within their higher order, is that okay with the committee? Okay, all right, so we'll approve the agenda with that bumping 8 just below 10. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes from December 5th? Are there any corrections to those minutes? If there's no corrections, the minutes are approved. Is anyone signed up for public participation?
No, there is not.
Okay, is there any correspondence for the committee to consider?
There is not.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna take 8 down further. Project status report, was everyone able to access the sheet that corresponds to the Land and Water and UWX projects? Just so you know, there was some weird formatting. The spreadsheet went way out. So I think we've got that resolved. Melissa, did
Yes.
Kyle? Okay. So if ever you have a problem, Melissa, call her. She works magic. So all right, could you tell us maybe a little bit about the tree and shrub sale that's on here? Or do you want to wait until we're down to the staff, Colton? Okay. Sorry.
So we have the annual tree and shrub sale going on right now. There's still orders coming in daily, a couple of them daily. I think we just hit 4,000 for revenue this morning. And yeah, there's flyers out at some of the local businesses, and then also doing some online stuff as well.
Are we running short on anything that is in inventory?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay.
There are some bigger orders coming through. We still have 14 Mile put in their first big order, which was 50 some bundles of trees. And then they still have another order that I'll be getting next Monday at their meeting. I think that there was one species that has like 10 or 12 bundles left, but other than that, we're still doing okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Yes, Supervisor McLaughlin?
When trees arrive and people are notified, anyway, when they come to pick up their property, their trees, are the trees distributed on a first come, first serve, or if order of ordering?
So they're all putting in their orders with me per bundle. And so then we'll get them in a big shipment with surrounding counties in Westfield, and then we'll separate them. And then I'll separate them out by what each person ordered.
The reason I'm asking is because some years back, for several years, every year I bought some trees. And several years back, I had an issue where I was like the first person to order. And when I got there to pick mine up, there were none left, which I thought was totally ridiculous. I mean, so, that's why I'm asking, you know, distribution wise, are they distributed? If you were the first one to order, you're certainly ought to be guaranteed you're gonna have your trees.
Yeah, so right now it's on a first come, first served basis. So until they're all gone in that specific species, then nobody else can order that specific species. But if you were the first one on the list to order, you'll be getting that order for sure.
Okay.
Would like to add one thing, and I don't know the specifics of what happened before. Occasionally when we do go to get, when we pick up the order from the nursery, occasionally the nursery has issues and they short us, say 1,000 trees or whatever, 50 bundles. Then we have issues. I mean, obviously the people who ordered those ahead of time aren't getting them. It doesn't happen very often, but that is something out of our hands. It's what the nursery has. They think they have it, but then they don't.
But if they had some, it would be first order in. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Supervisor
Yeah,
McLaughlin?
that's what I was just trying to, I realize you have other problems that can occur, but what happened to me, and I'm sure others, was you go to the land and water office, ordered your trees, and like I said, this particular year, I was the first one to order, but I didn't get there. I didn't have opportunity to pick up my trees. Well, sure, there were plenty of those trees that had showed up, but they were gone because they were handed out. Didn't matter if you were the 500th person to order it. If you showed up at the park or the fairgrounds or wherever it was, and to get your trees, you got them. And I ordered first actually, but I didn't get any. That's my point. I think I thought the system got changed in that department after that, because that wasn't right. I mean, you know, your trees were taken out from under you actually.
I think it did, Phil, because I remember a few years ago, you'd go in and it would all be loose. And then as we've moved forward, now you're bundling it in bags. So those bags would be bundled and ready to go. And you're going first, yeah. Yeah. And then you would notify someone if what they wanted is not available, correct?
Correct, yeah. I mean, if the nursery gets a hold of us and says that they can only send half of one species, then those that ordered first would get theirs first, and then I'd contact those from there down. if-
Okay. Okay. All right, Colton. Is there anything else on the project status report that would like to be, have the committee discussed? All right, we'll move forward. UW Extension. Pat, do you give us the area directors?
There you
report?
go. Happy New Year, right?
Yeah,
So here we are, and I'm looking at November, since we met last in December. It feels like it was a blur, and we're all here. And so my life was wrapped around winding up things for 2023 and doing day-to-day operations, as well as starting to gear up for the January, February months, where I'll be meeting with employees to complete their performance management development process. And that's all I'm going to say, that so that we can move ahead to a couple other things that have a lot more weight.
okay. Does anyone have any questions for Pat? Let's move forward then. Okay. Drainage Board vacancy update. Lynn?
There's been no change from the last time. We still have just the one application in.
And we need 2, right?
Yeah, she's looking at me because I asked for information on applying and didn't forget about it. I'm still highly considering doing that to apply for a seat. I'm sure wouldn't be the most qualified person around, but I am certainly would be far from the least qualified. So there's a good chance I'm gonna throw in my hat too.
Okay. Okay,
And what I'm going to do is I am going to reach out to the judge
okay,
and let them know that this is where we are with this.
okay.
I know in previous years, at times, they have allowed us to just put in a couple of applications, but
Okay.
we're supposed to have 3 for each vacancy,
Right.
and we have 2 vacancies. So,
Okay. Okay. Would you keep us, aware moving forward? So thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Youth Advocates for Community Health Program, YAC Yak?
Can you hear? Yeah.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
we
Okay.
can.
All right, we're excited to share work that we've been doing with youth. Unfortunately, Sheila could not be here with us to share along with us. So I'll get us started with the grant, the background, and the purpose, and then Evan will share the project process. So end of year, I feel like you can't hear me. Am I close enough? All right. So end of year 2021, Evan, Sheila, and I were approached by our program directors with the opportunity for us to collaborate on multidisciplinary work. That would be youth-led project with a community health focus. The project was introduced as the Well-Connected Communities Wave 3. So there was a Wave 1 and a Wave 2, where colleagues around the state did similar work around the state. And they did Wave 1 and 2 was previous years. The project was funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and it was a 2-year project. So there was 2 main purposes. Of course, the multidisciplinary work, where we would collaborate across institutes, and this would be around the state, so we could learn, how we work together and how that looked. And then the main purpose is to engage youth to work to lead a project that would be impactful change in the community. So often we refer to that type of work as PSE work. So it would be a change in policy, system, and or environmental change. And we have statewide specialists that supported us and provided resources for us along the way. So one of the resources that we used was the YAC toolkit. And YAC stands for Youth Advocates for Community Health. And this toolkit has been shown effective for engaging youth and leading PSE change to promote health. So I'll hand it over to Evan.
All right, thanks, Angela. So on the screen that you're seeing under the course groundwork, there are the 3 definitions. We got social determinants of health, health equity, and policy systems and environmental change. So those were, I'll let you click on that on your own time if you want more information about that, but that's kind of one of the pieces that we're talking about when we're talking about the collaboration. So Angela and Sheila work a little bit more in that realm as it relates more closely to their work, whereas my work is more around how to work with young people. So that was kind of one of the pieces, is bringing us 3 together in our strengths and our work that we do. And so this grant wasn't a huge grant. I want to say it was under $3,000, and the timeline, we knew it was short. It was maybe a 1.5 to 2 years max. So it wasn't like it was an ongoing big grant. So we knew that the timeline, we had to get it going and we had to get it implemented. And so at the time, Angela had mentioned that there was a health equity specialist. That person wasn't hired, but they were going to be the one that was going to be helping us and moving us along on this project. And so since they weren't hired, we didn't exactly know when the end time would be. But we were, as a team, we sat down and we talked about like the equity across our county, because we know that we have youth, not just in the Adams Friendship area, but in the Wisconsin Dells area and the Nakusa, Rome, northern part of the county as well. But we also had this timeline working with us as well. So, and we have our greatest, we tried to do this just vague county outreach that we'll call it, where we were posting on our social media pages, newspaper, and then we did like a promo booth at the county fair, just recruiting youth 8th grade and up across the whole county to join us. And it was a failure, right? And we know that failure is part of the learning cycle, so we were okay with it. But again, we still had that timeline working with us. So then we had to go back to the drawing board. So we had partners at the Adams Friendship Middle School who were looking for people to come in and just do coursework with them. So I had gone in and done something else with 4-H, and I said, hey, could I come back and do, this other work with you? And we had sent them this exact site here, our YAC book. And they were like, absolutely. And Sheila did a little bit more of that legwork too, because she has those partnerships with that teen outreach program. So long story short there, we ended up working with the middle school on this and their after school program. So we were going in on Wednesdays, and we had anywhere from 10 to 15 kids in the beginning. But we had 3 youth stand out in the whole project. So we kind of really locked into them and used them as our youth to move this project forward. And so we worked through this cycle that you'll see on there. Melissa, can you scroll up just a little bit? Okay, so it's not showing what I want, but there's a whole, yeah, click on that book for me. There we go. Oh, just kidding. Go back. Sorry. Yep. Okay, so there's like a yak circle, so it's somewhere on this webpage. But anyways, so we want the youth to identify what the project can be and how they can move this forward. And so we, with our specialties like Angela's nutrition base, Sheila's more health and well-being, so that's more emotional. And then I took the physical route. We were just asking youth to think about Adams County or their community where they live, and then think about like, what are the pieces that we don't have here? And so long process short, our youth came up with the project of self-defense. And so then we were creating this game board on how we can implement self-defense. And if we take a community-based route or we implement it in a school-based route. And so as a team, we decided, okay, the youth decided we would take a school route. And if it didn't work the school route, then we would come back and do a community-based route. And so we kept working through this and learning, okay, what do we need to do self-defense? What kind of curriculum do we need to use? Who's specialized to teach it? When are they going to do it? What grade? So all of these pieces and questions we are helping the youth work through, and how in doing a lot of, web-based learning. And so we've kept working with them throughout the summer. And so we've looked at curriculum standards, we've looked at community-based programs, and just kind of learning like, what does it take to get certified? We talked to school liaison. There's a couple school teachers that used to do this in a past profession, but don't do it currently. So we're just learning all about self-defense and why this would be important for young people to start this. And so this fall, as part of the sustainability piece, we met with our school professionals at the middle school and the PE teachers, and they gave us the confirmation of, yes, we would be able to implement this because we are able to help show that it lines up with curriculum standards and it lines up with the space in which they could teach it. And so we're excited that this project will be implemented in the spring, April, May, as part of a mini physical education standard for 6th grade starting, and then moving into 7th and 8th grade. Questions on any of that? Oh, yes, that's exactly. Thank you, Pat. Okay, this was what I was trying to show you, this graphic. So this is what we were working off of. We created like a game board where we can move pieces and kind of make it more visual for our youth that we would take to each session with them, just to kind of show them like, okay, this is where we're at. Like, what's our next moving step?
So Evan, as
Yep.
the adults going in to this situation, do you have kind of a grab bag of ideas for the kids to go off of, or are they being creative on their own and then?
Yeah, good question. So we didn't do that because we really wanted this to be like youth initiated, and we didn't want to have like any pre-notions or like pieces of agendas like that we wanted. We really wanted it to be authentic, given by the youth. But that's why like we broke out though into 3 sections, like nutrition, I was physical education, and then Sheila was emotional. So then when we had them rotate between those 3 little groups and just come up with ideas that related to each one. That was probably the most like generated kind of ideas, but otherwise they totally came up with that project idea on their own. And from our state partners, they were really like, how did you come up with self-defense? Because other counties have done like school gardens, or they've done, Marquette County did crosswalks. So they did something a little bit more simple, or a little more, every county, those are kind of simple things. Ours is very unique. And so we were told that it was unique the whole time that we finally went back and said, here's our project. And so it's really around emotional health and pieces along that. And then it fits in with the physical education as well.
I could add also, we did look at our community health needs and physical activity, nutrition and mental health, and also healthcare access. Those were the main things that were the needs for the community. So we kind of took off health access and just went with our main topics.
Okay. Thank you, Angela. Go ahead, Doreen.
How the way you went about doing this, I understand that it was grant based to start, but is this something that you're going to maybe try to continue in future years to come up with more ideas to get the youth involved and, you know, come up with more creative ideas?
Yes, so actually I'm gonna project this to the sale team, like the idea of using this graphic that you're seeing on the screen. I'm curious to see what they can come up with for ideas of like the community change or pieces that they would like to see improved, just to kind of get more of that youth voice and then help them project a little bit more youth adult partnership building. Angela, I mean, I can't speak to Sheila because she's not here, but do you?
Of course, we're open to any opportunities where we can keep this type of work going. So just learning how we can do that and how we can work with partners to make it happen.
So are we going out for additional grant funds then to go on for the next?
At the moment, no.
No. Okay.
And keep in mind too, like we still need to follow up with the middle school in that April, May, once they implement it to see how that's going. Cause I think once we get that feedback from them to see how it was implemented, how it worked, that would help us write the grant because we don't have an evaluation technically on the actual project itself. Does that make sense?
Sure. So I want to say it was the YouTube, which is the next one. If I don't know if we're watching that in the meeting or not, or if that was just for
No,
people to watch.
I
but-
think that's just for your reference. yeah.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, it appeared as though the last, were those in order of importance, priority, I guess. Because the last one was, you know, being able to protect oneself.
Mhm.
There were 3 other ones, don't ask me what they are now, but were those in order of importance to the kids?
Yes, we did like an activity where we narrowed down what was showing up the most, and then we had them go around and just put like little sticky dots on what they wanted to work on. And the self-defense was what had the most votes.
Okay.
And they were the only ones that voted, the youth.
Okay, I just, I always look at the underlying and I'm just wondering if the kids feel secure in our community. So when I see that it's on number 4, to me, that means they feel safe, but yet it's still something that they're interested in is how I'm reading it. So, okay, thank you very much. Any other questions for Evan or Angela? No?
Awesome.
This is an expansive guidebook. It's 80 pages, well worth reading. If anyone wants to borrow it from me, Linda, God bless you for printing it out because I appreciate it. I have it. Just ask me for it if you want to read more about it. Otherwise, you have to submit your information and then they give you a link to get to that information. Okay, so project video on the YAC program is for you guys to watch at your leisure. On to the educators report. Are there any questions for the staff on the educators report? I don't see any. Are there any things that you guys want to bring up specifically to underline? Go ahead.
There, I think I have my microphone on now. I was in here last month. I had some UW-Madison training at Stevens Point, so it's good to see you all again and happy New Year to everybody. I'd just like to highlight, I do have an event coming up next week here in Adams County at Signature Farms. I do still have registrations available, and so far we're sitting somewhere in between of 25 to 30 people registered for this event that you see on the screen here. So pretty, hoping for pretty good turnout for that. But I just wanted to bring to light that I do still have registration forms available, and if anybody would like one, we'd love to see you there. Some of the topics we're gonna talk about again is winter feeding, especially since we had this drought this last summer, which still continues today. How are we gonna feed our cows and calves through that into the spring, into next summer? We're gonna have the state specialist here to talk about that, as well as myself. I'll be talking about replacement heifers and how we can set ourselves up for success by choosing essentially the right ones and make or bringing them up to be good mothers and that sort of thing. We also are lucky enough to get sponsored or help sponsor the event by Lodi Vet Care. And we're going to have Dr. Bob Steiner here at the event to talk about castration, vet client patient relationships, which is very applicable nowadays. Seeing that things like antibiotics are very hard to obtain if you don't have a good relationship with your veterinarian. So if anybody would like one of those, just give me a shout and I'd be happy to help you out. So thank you very much.
It's loosey-goosey on the January 1st deadline.
It is. I put that on there hoping to get registrations in by January 1st, but the truth of the matter is I need to know 7 days before. So Thursday or Friday is the deadline I need for a head count as far as food goes is the main deadline. So the January 1st date was kind of to scare people to getting it in because I know the
Okay.
Christmas holiday and New Year's have a lot of people.
It fell off
maybe-
my to-do list, so yeah, I'll be in touch. so.
There's still time.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
I did get mine in on time.
Did you? All right. Well, we'll see you there, Doreen. Anybody else with anything that you want to point out, Natasha?
Yeah, I'd like to highlight that, it's not on my report, but it's upcoming events. So Adam and I are hosting, a beef and soil health meeting, in Watoma on January 18th. So I would be happy to see all of you there. We'll be talking about soil health, and what we know about soil health in Wisconsin. And Adam will teach us how we can keep our cattle healthy in the winter. And then, we also, other events that are close by later in the winter, in Montello and February 16th, I have a meeting on weed management for anyone who raises crops. We will have our weed specialist from Madison coming up, and we'll be talking about weed management and herbicides all morning. And then the Hancock Processing Crops meeting will be March 6th. So at the Hancock Station, of course.
Natasha, what are the times on those? Particularly the January 18th, since that's coming up.
1 to 3, Adam says.
1 to 3, and then we just reach out to you if we're going to attend or
Yeah,
just show
and
up?
I believe Laura actually posted them to our Facebook page today. So
For those that don't have Facebook?
you should have received an email last week. Did you?
Mm,
Mm,
No,
okay.
I didn't.
All
but
right.
That doesn't mean that
If I-
it's not there.
If I could interrupt, the in my portion of the report, the event is linked under the Washington County Courthouse, the second or third hot link in that.
Okay, yep. And you would like a count, obviously, right, for seats?
I mean, we're not as concerned because we're not having like a large meal or anything. So it's just an afternoon meeting, but
Okay.
there's the graphic with my pretty cows on it. So.
Yes, they are. Thank you very much. Okay. Anything else? You guys are wonderful. You can stay or go. No, we still have our financials. No, you can't. Financials report. Do we have anything from the committee on the UW Extension financials report? It does not look like it. All right. Now, thank you very much for coming all this way.
And
Yeah.
for shaping the project status report, there's a breakdown of the things that the
Yes.
YAC committee did, so you can see how they use their funds.
Yes, there is. If you couldn't read it, it's been updated, so go back out. The print might be a little bit better than a magnifying glass would show. Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day. All right, moving on to land and water. We're gonna bump the number 8 into effect. So, but within that, we're gonna do the FSA agent information. Doreen, if you could tell us about that?
So, as we mentioned at a previous meeting, the the state no longer has a law that an FSA agent needs to be on this committee. It is I want to get the wording right. A person who's engaged in agricultural use, and there is a specific definition of agricultural use. And so, I thought it was important that we come up with a policy, let's say, of how to assign or get this position filled in the future. So I have recommendations, but I don't know if you guys want me just to start with that, or if you guys want to have a discussion about it first.
That's a good question. I'm just wondering if we need a motion to put this into effect or not. Let's do our discussion first. Why don't you bring up your points, and then we'll see maybe what it involves, what you think it should involve, and then we'll go from there.
So I think it's important to have a community minded or, person of agriculture on the committee. I kind of thought of, do we still ask the FSA for on the committee if there's someone that would like to fill this position, and do that first? And then if that person isn't willing to be on the board because it's not a requirement, we could contact organizations in the area that deal with agricultural, such as Adams County Farm Bureau. We could contact the farmers of the Russia Cree. UW Extension has a great list of persons of agriculture, and then possibly any other farm groups you could contact, let's say Allied, and see if there's anybody that they know. I mean, so there's those other ones, but my first step was, let's see if anybody from FSA would be willing to be on board, and then kind of reach out to the other agricultural groups.
That sounds good to me. I don't know if everyone. Okay, yes, Supervisor Krug?
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the intent of the legislation when we passed it this year, was just to say, if there's not somebody who's FSA directly related, that somebody else could step in. So I think that's a good path to go down. Yeah.
This came up at our last meeting, and there are other counties that are doing it differently. The one other county that kind of talked about it, they said that, I guess, State Land and Water is going to have some sort of policy that they're going to come out with on what they want, or what you could do. So that county board is waiting to hear from the State Land and Water type thing. But I kind of thought, they're leaving it up to the county to do how they will. We should talk about it and get something in place.
Now the FSA agent is reappointed when the election occurs to the committees, correct? I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken. So in April.
So our election is, I think it's a 3-year term. So
there's overlap.
Yep. So one just got elected at the last meeting, and that was Waushara County, that district. And Adams County is covered by 2 different districts. The southern end is in a different district than the one I'm in, that I represent. That doesn't necessarily mean they would come from Adams County, because that district, I think, encompasses part of Columbia County or down that way. But anyways, so like right now, I am the only member on the FSA board from Adams County. When I started, Chris Riley, who was from the southern end of the county, he was on the committee, FSA committee. So
Okay. So that is a 3-year term on the FSA board.
correct.
But it is a 2-year appointed term on this committee.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, that's fine.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so there's that might be a little weird moving forward, but we've dealt with it before. So, yes, Supervisor Wimmer?
I think for now, we're good with that, but I would like to see, if it's not an FSA agent, because they're very valuable to us, I think we need to go in a direction that kind of fits together with the things we're doing in our, like the Farmers of the Russia Cree, a little bit different than standard agricultural practices, more in soil conservation and involving grazing animals, types of different crops than potatoes, beans, and corn that restore our lakes and our land and all those things that we're trying to do, and like our Lakes Alliance, our Farmers of the Russia Cree, something that fits a little more, so that we're out in front of it a little bit.
So we're
We're
thinking
actually-
outside of the box?
Well, you could say that we're
Okay.
actually trying to improve our soils, improve our land, improve our rivers, lakes, and streams.
Okay. Yes, Doreen.
So, and I understand where you're coming from on that. And I just want you to understand that part of this position, I think, is to have a person of agriculture that, will go back to others in the agriculture community to let them know if there's something concerning happening that would affect them. And also have a voice where actions taken, we can let you know, hey, that's not beneficial to, crop farmers, to, and farmers, they're very concerned about the soil, the water, and all that kind of stuff. So it's not, I don't want you to think that, I get where you're coming from, but it's often beneficial to have non-like-minded people on a committee. So you get a well-rounded view of how it's going to affect others outside of this committee.
Really and truly, if I had anything to do with it, hold on, Natasha. I'd rather have two, so you had two viewpoints coming in, because I understand where Doreen is coming from and I understand where you're coming from. Some of them, they're both boots on the ground, but they're also very diverse. Unfortunately, that's not an option that I'm aware of. I could look into that though, and we could have a further discussion on that. Natasha.
I just wanted to comment that I think a big part of this initially was that, there are counties where, we look around this room, their agriculture is represented in this room. When I explain what I do in my job, most of you understand what I'm talking about. There are counties where the committees that we talk to have no idea and don't know anything about agriculture. And so that's, the purpose of the FSA representative is that there's at least somebody in the room who knows what's going on and understands what agriculture is and can provide that voice. And just from a policy perspective of the, just for information purposes, FSA does have requirements. If you are going to be enrolled in FSA programs, you do have to abide by, not doing tillage on highly erodible land. You have to do things with nutrient management. And so conservation practices, are part and parcel of FSA nowadays. So
Are represented, you're saying,
Yeah.
with the FSA agent. Okay, so yes, Supervisor Wimmer, thank you,
I-
Natasha.
There doesn't seem to be much like-mindedness, as Doreen's talking about. I'm very happy with FSA representation, don't get me wrong. But if you dive deeply into conservation practices, there's not much like-mindedness there. I just look at our county, it's very diverse. And I guess my issue would be on doing all those conservation practices that improve our soils, improve our land, lakes, and water. And there's a lot of diversity right in that area right there. But for now, I'd say FSA agent works very well because they see a lot of different types of agriculture. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. So I guess moving forward, we would hope that we would be able to get someone from the FSA board. And then if that didn't work out, we would go to the farmer producer led group, UWX, Adams County Farm Bureau, Allied, some other outfits that are around here. You're saying no to Allied?
Some of these groups have way too much power,
Okay,
way too much influence, and they wouldn't be good. I think the university could be helpful. And
they have a lot of diverse programs going on. So, yes, Doreen,
So going to these groups doesn't mean that they're coming representing that
Right.
group.
right,
It's someone, it's, you know, that they're agricultural, you know,
right.
people that they could go,
Ask.
yeah, ask, hey, would you have anybody that would, that you know, that would be willing to serve on the committee?
Right,
So it's not that they're there representing that.
right.
I'm a member of the Adams County Farm Bureau, and I'm sure that's the one you're talking about that has too much power. Oh, okay. I'm just saying, you know, I mean, you know, I ship with Allied. I'm a member there. So I'm just saying that just because we're going to these people, they're not a representation from them.
It's just a pool to draw from if we can't find someone from the FSA board. Does that sound good?
And I think the ultimate committee decision on whether they, you know, are accepted into this committee or not is you guys.
Right,
You know, so if it's someone that's, I would say, extremely controversial in whatever ways, you could, you know, deny them access or deny them and ask for somebody else.
and that would be in the appointment process. So, are you comfortable with that, Supervisor Wimmer?
not exactly.
Okay, do you have any?
I'm glad to see us discuss this further. I think that as long as FSA is ready to represent us, I'm fine with that. But if we were to switch off from that, I think we need some discussion.
Okay, so let's leave it at this. The next time we're appointing an FSA representative, our first choice would be an FSA board member. And then anything else beyond that, we would have further discussion.
Then we have to set some criteria.
Right. Are we all comfortable with that? And I don't think we need a motion or anything to move that forward. That's just, it is what it is. So, okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Hold on. I gotta flip back to 8. Annual county, was there an FSA report? I'm sorry.
Just a brief one. We did meet and the elections had been held. We counted votes and Sarah Selter from I want to say Washera County was elected. So besides that, there was another program that was released called ERP, which is emergency, I think it was emergency. Anyways, so a similar program came out during the pandemic or after the pandemic to help farmers that were affected by all the policies and stuff that were put in place. So this one came out, only individuals that had insurance claims got the paperwork. There was no requirement. They just signed the paperwork and sent it back in. And there are specific requirements on what is qualified under this program. As a committee, we felt that getting documentation on why they were filling this out or having this claim was important. So this was the first step. There will probably be another round, second round, same as previously, where those that did not have a claim, they can put in for relief. That was it, emergency relief program. So, but again, that we would require documentation. So we kind of felt it was a flaw of the program that they would just send this out and not have any.
Have some criteria.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the criteria is like, so you'd have to have extreme heat. You'd have to have a qualified drought, which there was none in 2022. This is for the growing year of 2022. High winds. There was a tornado over in like the Coloma or Marquette, Washera area. So we're not saying that there wasn't events, but we want documentation that the farmer was affected by this. So, we had a couple that had documentation, didn't fit the criteria we were looking for. So essentially we were sending them all letters that they needed to send us documentation to prove the claim that they were claiming. So,
So it's like black and white proof that you were impacted adversely.
yep. So, like extreme heat or excessive moisture is another one that, okay, so if you're claiming excessive moisture, we need rainfall totals, stuff like that. So, yeah, but other than that, that was about the only major thing that happened at the meeting.
And what is Sarah's last name? I'm so sorry because you said it.
Selter, Selter, I believe.
Thank you. And what was she elected to?
The FSA board,
Okay.
the COC committee.
Okay.
Yep. So that was for, and I'm sorry, but they call them LAA regions. So it was that LAA region that covers Washera and that area
Okay.
over there.
Okay. Yes, Natasha.
And I will state that Ms. Stelter is the FSA representative on the Washera committee that I also report to as a regional educator. I've held events at her farm, and she's very conservation minded. And if those of you who are interested in FSA, the state head, for information purposes, the state director of FSA will be speaking in Adams County at the Chula Vista on the Saturday of the Grassworks Conference, which is the turning point between January and February. It's right around there. And we have requested, not, I'm the tech person, so I say we, but I didn't do any of the organizing. I'm just the tech person. But they've requested the presence of the national director, and he does like to travel and give addresses, so it's possible he will be there, but for sure the state director will be there. So if you have questions about FSA, you can get them answered at the Chula Vista. So
Just
Thank you.
as Sarah was previously on the board, so she was just reelected. So she is, she was previously on.
Okay. And I'll talk to the Grassworks conference. That's always a wonderful event. So anyone interested in that, it's not cheap, but it's a good one. So, okay. Thank you, Doreen. Anything else?
That is all. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So hold on. I gotta flip back to my. We are gonna move on to the annual County Forest 2024 work plan. Colton, Dustin, who am I looking at for? Okay.
So this is the work plan. We are required to do this every year. It's basically an update, so there's not a ton of, in the last year, we haven't had a ton of changes. As of today, we're still sitting on the same number of acreage. I do see 2 typos I have to fix, but on page 4, when I wrote this, it was before the county board meeting. So I didn't have a resolution. I didn't realize I had a resolution number at that point. So I have to fill that in. And then I said 2023 goals, but it's actually everything else in there
2024
was updated 24 except the heading. So it does talk a little bit about the continued process we're going through in order to purchase the about 600 acres or potentially going through that process. Talks a little bit about what we did. We did complete our first timber sale. That's page 3 where it talks about, page 4, prior year accomplishments. But yeah, pretty much everything in here is just updated from last year.
Can we add to this at all? Is this in draft form or?
Yeah.
Kind of. Here we're saying this is for the community. This is for people to come enjoy. We've talked numerous times on getting trails built.
Yep.
We need to get those in place. So And I know a guy who has a forestry mulcher. So he's out on Z. Go ahead, Supervisor Crew.
Yeah, I think, in light of what's going on with all the solar activity in the county too, coming up, and especially in Rome and other parts where it's going to come even more, I think the introduction of adding trails to this is really pertinent, because that's where all the biggest controversy is coming from, the northern part of Rome right now with the solar project. Hey, we're losing these areas. We need to have something else available. So, I mean, if we're going to be looking at making some of these purchases, having that part of the plan would be really, really helpful. So yeah, I just wanted to second that.
And I agree on the trails. The reason I didn't make it specifically in here is because it's only not only. This is for 140 acres, split into 2 parcels. I don't know completely how much benefit there would be in that. Now on the 600 acre purchase, that's a completely different story. And I think as a committee, we definitely need to discuss what kind of trails, how much we want to spend towards the trails. In the work plan, it does talk about, and it's a standard item in there, is always working towards improving access and making it better. Until the purchase goes through, it's hard to add anything in, but there still is that number 5 on page 6 that talks about improving it, and it is something we're always looking at. Some of the boundary markers that's in there, we plan to improve access to the county forest on O. It's hard to project when I don't even know if the purchase gets approved by county board or the committee and county board anyway. That's kind of where I struggle a little bit.
Okay, Doreen.
I was just gonna ask if there was money allotted in our budget for trails.
So no, for this year's budget, no. Again, I was kind of basing it off the 100 acres. Yes, we may end up with more. Depending on when, so we did complete our first timber sale 3 weeks ago. They do have 3 years to complete that, but the idea is when that money comes in, that goes towards, that is in a separate fund. That doesn't just like go into the general fund, that goes into the county forest fund. And we're looking at the winning bid, I think was $8,200. So that used for potentially trails, if we need to buy regeneration or plants for regeneration, any other supplies. 8,200 is not going to go a long ways towards purchasing new property, but as it grows, it could snowball that way. But that 8,200 would potentially be available for that. And if we did make that purchase, if we did end up with that 600 acres, that's something, there'd be a substantial amount of revenue coming in from timber sales there. And then we would have money set aside for that in the budget. That makes sense.
Yes, Supervisor Crew.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, Dusty. I appreciate that explanation. Once that purchase is complete, I think long-term, we've got some bigger discussions to have on this. And I hate going back to the solar thing, but this is not going to be the last time solar is going to be on our radar on land that we could be using for stewardship projects. I think we need to start identifying those other tracks that we could do some more stewardship activities on. I'm really planning on worst case scenario for this solar project. I'd love to see it not happen in Rome. But I'm looking long-term, if this has to happen, the revenue generated from these solar projects have to go back into protecting more lands and making sure that we can take the revenue generated by the county for the solar projects that we don't necessarily want and use them for, land purchases for this, trail development, replacing the access to lands that we may not have anymore. I mean, like I said, I don't want to see this solar project happen in Rome, but it's hard for any local control in that process at this point, but we've got to be prepared for further protection of the other resources that we still have.
So I guess one thing when I'm looking at this, we have money for signs. Signs are in place. When someone comes and sees this sign, To me, that's an access point. A sign kind of marks, hey, this is where we're at. Now it's just a free for all. You just walk on in. That's why I'm thinking just even moderate trails. And I'm not talking deer trails. I'm just saying something to give some guidance for the enjoyment of the public. So when they do come, you know, they're not getting lost in the woods. And yes, it's not that big of an acreage, but I don't know. I'm just,
And I think as a committee, or I guess the way I'm foreseeing this in my head is maybe say 3-4 months when we actually know or you know, like when the purchase is completed, if that ends up happening. I definitely think it's something that we need to sit down and it may start in the division to figure out, okay, what are good idea or potentially ideas, bring it to the committee. The 15-year plan already to some extent addresses all of them and says, you know, these are things that we're going to look at. So the basis for it is already there. Until we know what we're dealing with, you know, I think any talks might be a little premature, but I know what you're saying, and it's a matter of whether you want a little more wild. I think right now the primary use is hunting. If you start putting in trails now, it's more, I mean, it does open it up for hiking, bird watching, just walking. So.
sure. Doreen?
The other thing is, as far as access, is there, you know, a parking area, some sort of parking?
That's in the plans.
You
on
know,
O,
not
right?
just, you know, pull off on the side of the road type thing.
Right.
You know,
It has to be welcoming.
I mean,
And I know that sounds ridiculous in the fact that, you know, this is a county forest and everybody can use it, but if it's not welcoming, there's not going to be a lot of use.
I also get that, okay, it's right now it's primarily hunting, but you know, that's a short time of year,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
so.
A small window. Small
Correct.
window of opportunity. Although, is it all hunting? Because we've got turkey and small game and deer and.
For example,
everything.
the 40 acres on Camelot is archery only. So I mean,
Right.
that is September through,
January.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree with you. It is usable for everybody. It's just how developed of a trail. When we started, we've only been in the county forest program for a year and a couple months.
Not very long.
So we got the signage in, we're kind of doing it in baby steps as we have funding, and as we start doing more sales, more funding, you can see what, when you go to a state land, what they have for like a parking area with the nice boulders kind of delineating it. I could see ours definitely getting to that point. I'm still working on baby steps.
Right. It is going to take time, but I just wanted to kind of throw it out there that parking,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yep.
along with trails and, you know, it all takes time.
Yeah. Kind of has to get on a
Plenty.
list, you know,
Yeah.
of things. And so if we're looking at 2024, maybe we should have that on our radar is all I'm saying. Yes, Supervisor Rummer.
Again, at some point in time, we're gonna present this to the county board and we don't have anything to go by. You know, I don't think, if I was the county board looking at this right now, I'd say, what the hell are we doing? We need to have a plan in place. If this sale is gonna go through, we need to have plans in place. How are we gonna get money to do trails, to do the improvements that we need to do on this land? There's so many things that we're saying, well, let's wait. I'm not so sure if we took this sale to the county board right now, it would pass. Because there's so much up in the air. We need to bring some of this down in actual practice, like Representative or Supervisor Krug was, where we're gonna get the money. That's a good point. To improve our trails. Are we gonna get it off these timber sales? Well, that's a start, but that's 3 years out, right? Possibly, it could be 3 years before they have 3 years to complete the timber harvesting.
I don't know what the,
And I can address, all right, like if I can.
sure.
So when we do a timber sale, they do have 3 years to complete it. The current one it has been sold. The contract should be coming back any day now. My gut says it's not gonna take 3 years. It's a pretty small harvest.
It was a clear cut, wasn't it? Of red pine?
Yeah, it was Jack.
There was
Jack pine, yeah.
part of it was a pretty substantial. There was other areas that was thinning. But it's 23 acres total,
23 or 24, yeah.
which is
So we have a selective cut on some of it. And that was the oak. And then the jack pine was,
pretty much all
clear
of
cut.
it. Yeah.
yeah.
Comparative to the state sales that this was sold with, I mean, it's small. It's the way I foresee this happening. Instead of writing a work plan right now that says, you know, if this happens, then we're going to do this regarding that purchase. We have an overriding 15-year plan that talks about funding opportunities, where to look for funding, the different types of trails that we want to see. And that document is 100 and some odd, 110 pages or something like that. And that's the long-term vision. This is strictly and this document has nothing to do with the purchase of that county forest. This is, here's what we see happening this year. I don't know what the feeling of the committee or the county board is on the purchase of I mean, we've gotten go-aheads for various steps. Whether it ultimately gets approved or not, I don't know. So it's hard to plan for that. The way I see this happening is if this work plan gets approved, it's for this year. By the time, if everything works out perfectly, by the time we close on that county forest, it's probably going to be at this rate, February, March, depending on when the state legislature determines that grant funding. At that point, we have 9 months where we work on our any timber sales that would be necessary for it. And then coming into 2025, we have a plan. Okay, now let's put in horseback trails or hiking trails, and that would go in the 2025 work plan.
Thank you, Justin. So Supervisor Wimmer, I get the feeling that you want firm dates on
Well,
some of these
We don't
things.
have
that-
anything. I mean.
We don't. It's all up
we-
in the air, pie in the sky right now. So
Took it from a committee. We took it to the county board. They said, yeah, go ahead and see about this. We have no approval on a purchase. And then when you present it to the county board, I'm afraid without a concrete plan, not a 15-year plan that's up in the sky, but actually bring something down, say, this is what we'd like to do with this purchase. More specific, that they can look at it and decide, well, yeah, this would be a good thing for I think it's a great thing for the county, but I don't think it's a great thing just to be out there kind of a nefarious 15-year plan. I think we need to get down to specifics to sell it to the county board.
Cory?
So my understanding is this plan is just the annual plan for the forests that we currently have. Yes, the other one, if approved, would fold into it. And I think you need to have it somewhat vague because of
things happen.
things happen.
Right.
It needs to be that. I think all the proper steps are there on the plan, but you can't have nailed down plans in something like this.
Believe me, we don't have nailed down plans. And we probably won't get them either.
So
One other question.
yes, Supervisor
On
Wimmer.
the species, you're gonna take down, what is it, 30 acres of jack pine? 30 acres?
No, it was like
Clear cut?
well, the clear cut scheduled acres was 25.4, but that wasn't, it was 6 acres of jack pine.
That's all?
Yeah, so 8 to 10 acres of 2 oak stands respectively, an 8 acre and a 10 acre, and then a 6 acre of a jack pine stand.
Was there a plan to keep that open or regenerate? Or
I
what?
believe we were looking at replanting, correct?
It
Hand
would-
planting?
I believe you're referring to table 1 on page 5. The schedule of harvest treatments for 24-25 is 25.4 acres of jack pine. And that is in the portion of the forest by the
Beginning of that.
I have it as under that regenerated harvested area, oh, just above that, sorry. Scroll up a little bit more. It's a table, there you go.
Keep going, yeah.
That,
Yeah, there it is.
all
So
right,
what's the plan once you clear cut that? Are you gonna create a meadow or are you going to,
nope, so one of the primary purposes of the county forest plan is to have a sustainable forest. To maintain forestry, generate revenue, to provide recreational and access opportunities.
what
So
would you
the-
put in there? What would you regenerate it with?
At this point, undetermined. That would be a conversation that Caleb and I would have from the DNR. Caleb's from the DNR. That's why we get hours from the county or the DNR Forestry Division, is to assist us in those. He's gonna look at it and say, okay, here's the things that would work. And it'd be a discussion that we would have to have with that. One possibility is that it ends up, whatever comes up, comes up. I mean, that doesn't get used a lot, but that is an option. The other thing that I did discuss with him was on the sale that we did on the 40-acre piece, we don't actually have to make that. We don't make that decision for another year or two after the harvest. You
Well,
don't.
you
go in
always
right
have
away.
an opportunity to see what regenerates on its own, is my understanding. And sometimes it comes with no expenses because it's just regenerating from what's there. The one thing I had an issue with is when we're talking about putting protection around each tree. I think that's a ridiculous waste of money unless we're talking tip weevils on white pines. Then maybe, but then they just need an overstory. So the clear cut causes problems for white pines. We know that coming back in. But is that something that we can say, you know?
Do you see that in the?
It
where
was in here somewhere. Yeah. So, okay, so this is what I would like is, yeah, including tree bud caps and tree tubes. That is in number 3. Regenerate harvested areas. It's on the next page, just above 4. So anyways, I think that's kind of a ridiculous expense. The second thing is under 5, I would just like an emphasis on looking at creating trails in the forest that we have. Just because I think we need to have a stake in the ground somewhere.
Okay.
And I don't know if that needs to be altered before it comes back for signature. I'm assuming it would.
Guess I would be up to.
So what else do the committee members feel? Cause now's our opportunity to give this, back to Dustin and Colton. Colton, are you doing this or is Dustin doing this? Dustin is doing this. So are you working with him on that?
Yeah, we've been talking, but going back to the trails, the DNR does have a grant that would be available. It's called an RTP grant, Recreational Trail Program.
Let's get it.
It
Let's try.
reimburse up to 80% of the final costs, and they're usually due at the beginning of May each year.
Okay.
Possible.
So can we put that in the plan too, going after the RTP?
RTP, yeah,
RTP.
Recreational Trail Program.
That sounds fantastic. So could we do that too? I mean, let's
Even
let's
if it's
actually
just
get
for
a,
the
yeah,
current
yep.
land.
Yeah, because why not? Okay, so when you have proof of concept, why aren't you trying it on a smaller piece of land before you start implementing it on a bigger piece of land, right? So let's see if what we're doing actually gets the public's attention. It's attractive. It's doing the job of encouraging the use of the county forest on a smaller scale before we get to a bigger scale. So are we all good with that? Supervisor Krug?
I don't think that's too problematic. I mean, that's fine. Like I said, I think our bigger problems right now are probably gonna be in the 15-year plan more than the 2024 plan right now, because we got a lot of things coming that we didn't really anticipate happening. different sources of revenue that are gonna come up because of what's gonna happen with solar projects and wind projects. And so I think our 15-year is gonna have to be reviewed a little quicker than we wanted, but I think 2024 is fine by me. With those additions we're talking about already, and I'd be good to go on it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you Supervisor McLaughlin. Okay, does that sound good? And then maybe put that into play and then bring it back next month?
Yep. Can you put it on the agenda or make a note? Yeah.
That would be super. Okay, thank you. Let's just make sure I'm not dropping anything off. Water withdrawal from area lake districts. Mary Lou? Okay. Okay. Okay, the one thing, and I'm just gonna remind everybody where we left it with Corp Counsel Hayes was that the best option currently, without anything in place, is the cease and desist that municipalities have, or lake districts have, I should say, correct? So yeah, so when we get to that point, we're just gonna keep it on the agenda when ACLA meets and gives us some input also. We'll just have it there so we can discuss it. Okay, thank you very much. Is there one held tonight or not? Okay, so February might be the next one?
Well, I'm not sure.
Up in the air. Okay, okay, so watch our emails then. Okay, all right, thank you, Mary Lou. Okay, so, I'm bouncing all over here. We are on the land and water staff report. So, are there any questions for Dustin or Colton in regards to the land and water staff report? Yes, Supervisor Wimmer.
Couple questions. Colton, I see that your meetings or your part of the plan only went to October 9th. I wonder if you could give us why there isn't an update on that. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I just noticed that the last thing you posted for a time frame was October 9th.
These ones are all up to date. That might have been because when we make our monthly reports, we duplicate it. So it might have been where it was updated.
The one that's on there now,
The one that's up there now from what I did, my meeting.
Which is different than what was out there on the agenda,
I didn't
right?
see that. I'm
Because
sorry.
we had linked,
Yeah, it wasn't updated.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
got it.
kind of confusing,
Okay.
Supervisor
All
Wimmer.
right, well, all right,
So-
thank you for that.
So, yep,
All right, did that just get posted a little late?
Uh,
Okay, and then, this gym-based project, what's the expense on that as the landowner? Is that a cost share thing? Okay, so 50-50 like, or
should be 70-30.
70-30 for the landowner, 70 and 30 for the county?
other way.
0 for the county.
Oh, this is all grant.
I mean, it looks like it comes from us, but we get it reimbursed. So, I mean, ultimately it doesn't cost the county anything, but it would be the other way, 30% landowner, 70%. Okay. Grant, thank you.
All right.
He can get you the exact numbers. I think that's what he's looking for. Otherwise I can find it too.
There was I think it was under Kiefer's, but it might have been under someone else's. Now I'm not finding it on the Rosha Cree. We need a resolution. A resolution is needed for something to do with the
That
Rosha.
Kiefer's, I think it was.
Yeah, hold on, let me just see. Is he saying that the committee needs to create a resolution? hold on.
Where do you?
It was highlighted, but now this has replaced the one that was out there, so I'm not seeing the highlight anymore.
The only thing that was highlighted is that the grant was awarded, which is our.
Need resolution for Farmers of the Rosha Creek Stream Sampling Grant. That is under, let's just make sure I'm not. That was, okay, so my report is dated January 2024.
All right.
And it is under Kiefer and it's under Lakes and Streams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the 9th bullet point. And I'm just gonna look at this one to see if we're matching up with it, which it does not. No.
All right, so.
And I had thought that Packers had taken over Farmers of the Rosha Creek producer led.
So they've taken over the grant. This
Okay.
is something completely different than that Farmers of the Rosha Creek grant.
Okay,
And you are correct. Packers, as of yesterday, it's on them. We have some finalizing stuff to do for stuff that was spent last year.
okay,
Getting the reimbursement and everything like that. But moving forward, their Packers is going to be taking care of it. This is something different, but in conjunction with it.
okay.
I'm trying to find something right now online or on our.
I'm not sure what he was getting at with that. The resolution that we had submitted with our grant in November.
Yeah.
It was a 3-year agreement and that we would need a new one in 2025.
Okay,
So it was just like a continuation. It would end at the end of 20.
okay. So this is maybe something interdepartment
No.
versus with the committee?
All right, so the grant he's talking about, that resolution is a 3-year grant. That's the one that is on the updated one right now, highlighted, and it says the grant was awarded LMPN. Higher. That. All right, so we've gotten an official word that,
Okay,
that's
grant
about-
awarded, yep, Lake Monitoring and Protection Network 2024.
yep, this is the 3rd year we've done that.
Okay,
And originally it was a 3-year resolution, which is what he was talking about. So when we come back for it next year, we actually have to go through the resolution process here at the committee level and county board.
okay,
But that grant's awarded and that's approximately $10,800 and that goes towards Kiefer's salary. Depending on how much of it he uses of the total. Now this year it will be almost, I believe the whole 10,800 is getting used. The past couple of years, it wasn't fully used. At the November 7th meeting here and then November County Board, discuss and/or act on a resolution for Wisconsin DNR surface water grant for nutrient testing in the Big and Little Rosha Creek watersheds. So this committee and the county board's already acted on that and we've applied for that grant.
so now
So-
we're talking about the other one that I was talking about.
What you see where it says need resolution.
Right,
That was taken care of in November. That's
Okay,
because it was an outdated thing you were looking at.
okay,
Yeah.
and so.
How do you not get that?
We did. Okay, so from now on, and I'm not finding fault with anyone, but when we put things on our agendas, I would like to see the title of it. If there's one link, go ahead and use the title of it, but if there's 2 different reports, I think underneath we need to have them delineated, so on each line, because a lot of times we'll have 2 things and at first glance you think, well, I'm just gonna click on this one and it covers everything, but it's not. It's like 2 or 3 clicks to get everything, to get everything visualized and studied. I could give you an example, probably last month might have been a good example, but you and I can work on that together. And I know Lyanna has been working with the format to try to get it more in line with other committee agenda formats. And so it's a process. I think we need to keep it going forward. And then just if you see something and it's underlined, click on it, because most likely it's hiding something underneath it that you need to look at.
Mine said it wasn't, I needed to request.
Access on the county plan. Yep. And so you send notification, do the request asks this.
And that
then-
was sent to me.
Yeah.
And I approved them at about 6:30 this morning.
Yep.
Because I got like 5 of them, 4 of them, something like
Yep.
that. I don't know how to change that.
I think Melissa
I have
did.
to re-say that.
Is that what it is? And I
Yeah.
didn't, at 6:30 this morning, I wasn't trying to figure out how to do that.
Why
but-
not? No, I'm
right?
just-
But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't even know why it would have done it in the first place, because it was an update from the one from a year ago that everybody was able to look at. So I don't know how
It's some glitch.
like why the permissions changed. But yeah, as far as the staff report, you know, they add to it as the month goes on.
And then we get a snapshot of it. And that's why sometimes it's confusing.
All right. And with, we mentioned it earlier. So today is the 2nd. When the agenda goes out a week ahead, there's still time in the month left.
Right.
So either we don't add that week's worth, or say last 5 days, add it in there, or it's going to change up until day before the meeting, or.
Well, and I think some also confusion exists when we cancel a meeting because we have no actionable items. And now we have 2 staff reports out there under links on our agenda. So there has potential to have confusion, and we just have to work through it and figure out some solutions so that we don't have the confusion. So we'll be doing that as we move forward.
Okay.
Because I've heard about
Sometimes
that.
I see on other agendas, committees, like they'll have updated and parentheses a date.
Yep.
So then you know, oh, okay, so this was
Or
from
like a
last month.
revision thing. Yeah.
Something like
okay.
that, yeah.
Sure. That sounds good. We'll take that all into consideration. Supervisor Wimmer.
Yeah, I think it was under Kyle's report. There was something about a reflection on the last 6 months field season. And I was wondering, is that a reflection that's gonna involve the committee? So that
Okay,
we have
so-
more, specific information?
Now I have to go back, but you're looking at the
The update.
outdated one. Yeah.
And,
I don't see it under his report.
I'd have to go back and look at the.
While you are looking at that, Supervisor Wimmer, can I just ask if, and I wish Kyle was here because this is to do with him, but the costs on the education / outreach costs, agricultural costs, lakeshore water quality, extra staff and office costs, those are rather eye-opening. And I'm just wondering if someone could speak on that.
And where are you seeing that?
If you click, I think on the milestones, the blue header underneath Kyle Kettner, and you go to page, I want to say 15 and 16. So at the very,
Oh, cost, okay.
yeah. So can you bring those up, Melissa? Cause, you know where it is? Okay. So if you go under Kyle, whoops, nope, you got it. Breakdown, yep. Right there, so hit the blue. And then go all the way to the bottom. Go to the next tab over then. Keep going, there we go, up. So, if you bring that up, can you maybe make that smaller so we can actually see it? I can't, you can't. That's another issue that we need to address because that's a real pain in the. But anyways, if just go, we'll flip back and forth on the scroll bar.
If you go all the way down at the bottom, they do have the,
Got it. She's
Okay.
down. It's up on top. So if you can scroll through that, keep going. We are at 4 million there.
that's for the agricultural costs.
Right.
At the bottom, he has a table.
Yep, Lakeshore, but I'm just, if you could speak on some of these amounts. That
Sure,
would be
this has. The-
Yeah,
Right.
if fully implemented, I understand,
And it wouldn't be anything necessarily to do with the county.
right?
This was, that position for the 3 years, that grant is part of this 8 million. If you broke it all apart, that portion of that grant is a portion of that 8 million. This was when they did the full plan. Here's what, you know, in a perfect world, if we could implement everything we possibly could to improve water quality. Here's
Right,
what.
So like on Tri Lakes, we take on some of these projects at Tri Lakes and we pay for some of the, you know, if there's something 14-mile watershed group comes to us at Tri Lakes and says, okay, here's the project. We run it through Kyle and the team and DNR, and, you know, a project cost on there could be reflected through what Tri Lakes is raising or what DNR grants would cover, or so it's just cost of what those projects would eventually cost if they were all undertaken by somebody.
So it's like a wish list and the costs involved on them.
Kind of, yeah. It was a long-term, you know, I guess we always kind of talk about that 3-year position. So kind of like a 3-year grant. Well, it is, but the overreaching plan is actually a 10-year plan. Here's ideas over that 10 years. So the initial 3 years that Kyle's been working on is establishing those relationships with producers and like waterfront property owners, those kind of Tri Lakes, those kinds of groups. Establishing, okay, here's our needs. And then say the last 7 years of what this plan would essentially cover is where 14 Mile steps in and says, oh, you know, we have an extra $1 million laying around. We're going to do these projects. And this was essentially before Kyle. I mean, this is what created Kyle's position. So until you had the data, you know, these numbers were a best guesstimate.
Okay.
That had to go in that plan, but it's really part of a larger.
Overall.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess one of the questions I have, we've discussed it in the past. Are we firmly looking into a permanent position for Kyle?
It has been, Cynthia and myself have and actually Colton, Carol and Kyle, Finance Kyle have all discussed this.
Okay.
As far as whether we can actually make it work in the budget or not.
Do we have a status on that?
At this point, it does not look promising, but because we're talking about creating a whole brand new position,
Okay, so
but it is something.
we have 7 years more of work to do on this, right? And we have no one to come after the 3rd year of the work being completed? Is that what we're kind of saying?
To some extent.
Basically, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a 3-year grant for this long-term project. So I mean,
Are we-
similar to every other grant
Yeah.
funded position out there, you'll never get the work done.
Are we looking at other grant opportunities?
Yep. And we are having another meeting I just saw it on my calendar. I think it's February to revisit the topic, discuss if there are grants available to move forward, with potentially making that a full-time position. I mean, a non-grant funded position or a different grant funded.
Go
But that
ahead.
is definitely a conversation we're having with county manager.
Thank you. Supervisor Crook?
Yeah, sorry to keep jumping in, but this is something that we've talked about on Tri Lakes a lot too, is that because part of Kyle's position right now is funded by Tri Lakes, right? So we keep going back and forth on what the future of what our cost on Tri Lakes would be for this position too. Not to keep bringing it up, but the solar project's going to generate a lot of money if it happens. And I was talking to Supervisor McLaughlin just a little before the meeting saying, well, if this thing has to happen, this revenue generated has to go back into all of these types of things we're talking about. So the revenue source may present itself. Tri Lakes is also looking to go back to the electors of the district with a massive project we're working on right now for, Arrowhead and, some of those other areas with new technologies. So it could mostly come from, the individual owners on those individual lakes. So it's, what you see on the screen is you know, and Kyle and I talk about it all the time, is what you see on the screen, you're never going to accomplish. It's just something that you have to put together to get a grant.
And now we're
submitted.
talking Kyle Kettner.
Kyle Kettner.
Okay.
right, Yeah, you know, he and I talk long-term on this all the time, saying, you know, what the project looked like when we applied for the grant 2 years ago is totally changed now because of technologies we're using at Tri-Lakes.
Right.
So, you know, this is just something we had to do to apply to get to a grant, and long-term, we're gonna have different ideas for funding for positions, but it'll be ongoing and ever changing.
Okay. We have centralized accounting, or we're heading that way within that umbrella. We're doing some kind of grant writing.
Mhm.
Grants are coming to the Land and Water Department though, for opportunities. And then are we communicating with the central accounting aspect of the grant writer?
Yep, so
We're not dropping the ball anywhere along the way?
the position of the grant specialist, I guess, best way to put it, was just recently filled. So we are kind of initiating, we're using that 2024 LMPN grant that actually Kiefer highlighted on there that was just awarded. We're going to use that as kind of our establishing the baseline of who's going to do what part of it. When it comes time to writing grants, we haven't written one since this person's been on, but that would all be established as we go and figure out what the best route is. Our division definitely has more than their fair share of grants compared to other departments.
Well, and I think each department has a specialization in trade. You know your stuff, right? You know what grants you want to do and are available. So I just want to make sure that there's some line of communication going on between the department and this grant specialist so that, go ahead, Colton.
I actually have a meeting with her on Thursday to
Okay.
go over all of our grants and our deadlines and to see what she could assist us with certain grants.
Thank you. Okay, that's awesome. Can you keep us up to date on that too? Okay, all right, that's super. Okay, I'm sorry. I just saw that and I just wanted some clarification on those figures. So, are there any other questions on the Land and Water Staff Report for Colton or Dustin? And do you guys need anything other than the confusion that we've had for addressing what are on these two different
Heard that out too.
reports? Yeah. Anything? Okay, Supervisor Rimmer?
I had one question. If you do the cost share for windbreaks, is there a time frame? Like I see windbreaks disappearing a lot, not just in Adams County, but in Marquette County and other counties. And is there a responsibility to keep a windbreak in place if they go into this program? And how long is that?
Yes, and do you know the years off the top of your head?
What's that? Oh,
He's trying to Colton.
There is definitely, there's a maintenance. I mean, if they fall down after a certain number of years, they have to replace them. You know, if it's, or not fall down, but die or
whatever.
yeah.
blow away,
Um,
Cut down.
right. There's responsibility that they have to replace that and maintain that.
Yeah.
I will have to get to you.
Cut up in my
Yep.
next meeting, we know, because these windbreaks seem to be disappearing and, for whatever reason, it's easier to get in and out of a field. I don't know.
I think sometimes it's irrigation too, if they're getting,
Yep.
there you go.
Are you,
It is, it's all about productivity, right?
Yeah.
Bottom
well,
line, profits.
are you referring to the one on the other side of Oxford by any
Oh, that was
chance?
pathetic. That was beautiful, and that's wide open land. Just to blow
I didn't
away.
get that either, but
Now you've got,
That
now you've got
beautiful
erosion.
spruce Hedgerow all the way through there, and they just,
about 3/4 of a mile, maybe.
yeah.
Crazy.
It's by our farm, so
Okay, yeah. Yeah, bring the rules and regs on that next time.
I can do
I
that.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other questions in regards to the Land and Water Staff Report, unless I'm missing something. Okay, moving right along, dams report.
No update. I mean, nothing.
Okay. County forest report. We've heard a lot of the county forest, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
The biggest thing is that the, so the DNR is actually the entity that submits the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant. The final documents were signed shortly before Christmas, about 3 days, by me, sent to the DNR. His name's Doug, had a division of forestry. He runs it up the food chain, and I believe it's the secretary of the DNR that formally sends it to the Joint Finance Committee at the state level. There was some question about when it would go to JFC because of the holidays. So it's and Supervisor Krug gave me the inside scoop on that. It's a 15-day passive review, meaning it's handed out to the Joint Finance Committee. If they don't object to it, it's automatically approved. In practice, it never happens. Somebody always objects to it. Then there's a hearing process. They get the input of the local, like state senator, state representative, and go from there. They didn't want to make, it sounds like the DNR staff didn't want to make the bulk of the review period during the holidays. So my understanding is it should be going to JFC like today or tomorrow, very soon. And then that 15-day clock starts. Now they may have, I didn't get word of it. It may have gone last week, but they didn't notify me of that.
Okay.
Cool. Put in a good word.
So how does that impact us moving forward in January?
So the offer to purchase had a closing date scheduled for the end of January. I'm gonna hold out until the 15 days is up, or I hear that there is an objection. If there is, then I'm gonna have to request that we extend it out 30 days. They were very flexible with us originally. I thought it would get taken care of by then. The hang up was it took almost a month for the title work to be done. And I wasn't budgeting something that should have taken a week to do.
Okay.
I'm guessing Meteor sees a lot of deals like this where they have outside source funding and pending, so I don't think it's gonna be too big of an issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were happy with the price, and they actually, when I talked to them, they're very happy it's going to into a county forest program as opposed to seeing it necessarily developed or something like that. Gives them a good reputation.
Okay.
So I don't foresee an issue expanding or delaying it. But until I have a little more concrete, if I even need to or not, then we'll work on that part.
Okay. You'll send out an email or something
Yep.
to alert us if we have to do something fast.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Lake Alliance report. Mary Lou, anything? Okay, so I didn't think so, but I have you on here, so I have to ask. FSA already Doreen has gone with that. Central Stands Groundwater County Collaborative, that is meeting at the end. I think it's the last month of January. So nothing to report on that. Debt cap, are there any questions or concerns to send back to debt cap on what they sent to us? I'm seeing no's. Lake Winnebago Land and Water Conservation Association, in your packet of information, you should have seen the registration form. I know in the past Supervisor Krug has attended, Supervisor Wimmer has attended, and I have attended. I know Kiefer is going probably. How much funds do we have for committee members to go?
There's enough for this. It depends on what else you do throughout the year.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there is a limited amount. We do have a good chunk in that.
Maybe I should ask this, who's interested in attending? I would like to go because I'm an alternate on a land and water board. Yes. Okay. Okay. Supervisor McLaughlin? No. Okay. Mary Lou or Doreen? No. Okay. So there would be two.
Perfect.
Is Kiefer leaving from home or is he leaving from the courthouse? Okay, could you let us know? Cause I'm fine driving. Bill, Supervisor Wimmer, sorry, Supervisor Wimmer, are you anticipating driving yourself? Do you wish to drive with someone? Okay. Carpooling? Okay, so could you reach out or have Kiefer reach out to us, Colton? So, all right, do you need for us to fill this out or can you put Supervisor Wimmer and myself as attending? Okay, okay. All right. If anyone changes their mind, I think it's January, when is it? January? That's January 19th, but the registration is due by the 12th. Yeah. So if you guys change your mind, let Colton and Kiefer know. Okay. All right. So that is handled. Financial reports. Anybody have any input questions on the financials? I'm seeing nothing. So we are not going to proceed with any kind of special meeting. We're gonna, unless we need to. So there's a heads up. If things go forward on the Knowles Nelson grant with the Joint Finance Committee, then we need to get our ducks in a row to make sure the land acquisition goes forward correctly. And so if by some miracle, things happen a week before county board, we would have a special meeting during that 7-day span and maybe even just at the beginning of the county board meeting to make sure that the land acquisition goes through correctly. Correct?
Yep. It's a slim chance that we're gonna need this meeting, but kind of just a heads up.
Yeah, slim to none, but just in case. So that's what we're looking at. But officially for our next monthly Land and Water and UWX meeting, I'm looking at February 6th, 2024 at 1300, 1:00 PM, if that works with everyone. Yes, Supervisor McLaughlin. Okay.
Regarding this potential, spontaneous meeting, the needed meeting, make sure you check it with the big one to see if it's okay.
Oh, County Manager Hager?
Yeah.
I thought you were pointing at Colton.
No.
And I was like, all right, Colton, you're on deck, man. So,
County manager
okay.
makes the call whether you can have a meeting and get paid or not.
Well, that's true.
And well, it's wrong. It's true.
Yeah. So Dustin, could you reach out to her when you're getting closer and closer to knowing if we're gonna have one or not?
Yep.
Okay, and then let me know. So, okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Happy beginning of 2024.